And we're going to move along now to three people who are going to be talking about the hot topic these days that I hear a lot about and talk to a lot of clubs about, and that's hybrid meetings. Our own District Governor-elect Nico Iannelli, District Governor nominee Cam Chandon, and from Greenville, South Carolina, a theme today, it seems, past District Governor and techie extraordinaire Terry Weaver. And Terry's done extensive work on a lot of things for Rotary, but and from a technology standpoint, but also in hybrid meetings. So, and I'm going to turn it over to you three gentlemen. It's all yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Lieutenant Governor Yvette and TJ, for inspiring us this morning. So our next session this morning, I know we have been living in the world of virtual all day, every day. But our next session is basically going to focus on this new world, and the new world that has accelerated our adaptability to new circumstances, technology advancement, and then building connections virtually. And that new world is all about hybrid meetings. So as you know, my name is Cam Chandon. I'm actually a member of Rotary Club of Lake Norman Huntersville. And I'm honored to serve as the DGN for our District 7680, the birthplace of Rotary. And this morning, I have the pleasure of two other great Rotarians joining me. One is our past District Governor Terry Weaver, and our District Governor-elect Nico Iannelli. And we are going to talk about do some knowledge sharing sessions on hybrid meetings, the why, how, and the best practices of actually having an engaging virtual experience. So I'll do a little bit introduction about our panelists, and then we'll start. Past District Governor Terry Weaver is from a neighboring district, 7750. Terry is a member of Rotary Club of Greenville, South Carolina. During his 35 years in Rotary, Terry has been a member of Rotary Clubs of St. Louis, Milwaukee, Atlanta, and Greenville, 4 of the 100 largest Rotary clubs in the world. He is a major donor, Paul Harris Society member, benefactor, and a Bequest Society member. Terry is an active promoter of entrepreneurship and has served on technology advisory boards of Kansas City University, Furman University, University of South Carolina Upstate, Greenville Technical College, and the United Way of Greenville County. A former corporate executive and the president of publicly traded company. Terry has also owned 3 small businesses. He has had as many as 10,000 employees and as few as 2. Our third panelist is DG Nico Iannelli, a fellow Rooster and a good friend from the Rotary Club of Waxhaw Weddington. Nico will be serving as our district governor in exactly 68 days from today. We are excited to...
It's a clock to countdown.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in 60, and we are excited to serve to change lives under his leadership. 3 of us will be sharing our learnings from attending and hosting a lot of hybrid meetings. So I'm just going to cover a basic definition of what is a hybrid meeting. And then, of course, we'll hand it over to Nico and Terry to cover the rest. So what is a hybrid meeting? You know, there are many definitions of it, but in Wikipedia and other places, it says that hybrid meeting is an in-person meeting with an integrated virtual component to allow for attendees to either join virtually or in person, depending on their preference. Hybrid meeting is not a replacement for in-person meeting or virtual only meeting, but it is a fusion of a live event and virtual event that creates a different type of attendee. These different attendee and meeting types require a custom solution, and your overarching meeting goals will determine how the meeting will be designed. So I'll now hand over to Nico to cover the next 2 slides on going on the why, what, challenges, and pitfalls. Nico, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Cam. And like I said, the why and the what. Listen, people are not looking to go back to normal. They want to go back. They want something better. You know, we were able to learn so much in the past year, and things that we're doing in Rotary, like doing a Zoom call, we've been doing it in the private sector with businesses for years. So it's not new for some of us, but you know, how do we think differently? How do we connect differently? And how do we present differently? You know, we got to keep members engaged. Meetings have to resume. They're going into this hybrid model. Some members are not able to physically be there. So as we look at our diversity, equity, inclusion, for those members that can't be on site, they might have to attend virtually. How do we do that? And it's also a great opportunity for potential new members that we can have like a virtual or like an e-membership where, they can't take 2 hours out to go leave to a lunch meeting and go back, but they can jump on a Zoom call. There's clubs that we have that have members that are outside the district or even outside the country, so how do we make it inclusive to everybody? So those are some of the things that we're going to talk about, and we'll be able to elaborate more out in the breakout sessions. Things that, there's competition that's out there, is it worth my time? There's broadcast TV. The sound quality and the image quality that you're displaying to your audience has to be top notch. Governor Mike's done an exceptional job this year on elevating our technology and trying new things, and we're all doing it. Local events, you want to have a virtual audience too, and you got to definitely scale it up, setting up your desktop for Zoom and do presentations. Terry Weaver is going to go into a lot more on this, and we'll be able to discuss further in the breakouts as well. But we're really, it's about stepping it up and keeping everybody engaged, whether it's in person, virtually, or what the new norm is going to be by being all inclusive together. Terry?
Thanks, guys. And thanks also to TJ for that shout out for the idea of hybrid meetings. It cuts across a whole lot of organizations other than Rotary. But almost a year ago, it became apparent that there were going to be members who couldn't or wouldn't come back to in-person meetings anytime soon. We need a solution for that. And we also had some practice with virtual-only meetings for a few months. So we realized that the 1,700 clubs in zones 33 and 34, all the way from Pennsylvania to South America, shouldn't all have to figure this out on their own. And so a small team of technical types across both zones got together, and we built a hybrid meetings technology guide, which I'd like to review with you today. Now, this guide is, of course, available online, and I'll explain exactly how to find that. So needless to say, we've learned a lot about hybrid meetings. We've learned a lot about virtual meetings. And of course, as this guide evolved, we experimented with these things in our own clubs. We did some adjustments along the way. So here's what the guide looks like. And if you just Google Rotary hybrid meetings, really dirt simple, Rotary hybrid meetings, you will find this on the first page. There are other guides. This one is the one from Rotary zones 33 and 34. Like everything in life, there are some basics for success in a hybrid meeting. Number one is sound quality. You can't believe the number of complaints you'll get if you simply try to use, say, a laptop microphone or a handheld device microphone as the way for the Zoom audience, the virtual audience, to hear the meeting. It just doesn't work. A remote camera and tripod is what we need in order to hit that broadcast TV standard. And that's your competition. Anytime anybody looks at anything on a screen, their mental image and their mental comparison is to broadcast TV. So that requires not that you have just a shot of the whole entire front of the room, but you need to go right in on the heads and shoulders of the presenter, whomever is at the podium, whomever is speaking. Of course, a projector and a screen or a large monitor is a good option, actually less expensive than a projector and screen and maybe less trouble, particularly if you can leave it or mount it at your meeting place. Again, a way for the in-person audience to see and understand that there is a remote audience. There's intelligent life out there. Of course, an internet connection is essential. It doesn't have to be super fast, but it does have to be a little bit better than you might get out of the average hotspot. So a wired internet connection within the facility, at least a wired connection outside, maybe Wi-Fi to your internal devices. So those are the basics. Now, here's a super simple approach. If you had a very small audience, I'm talking about very small, half a dozen people in the room and half a dozen people on Zoom, you could actually do this on a phone or tablet. Now, most people are not that good at holding a phone or tablet steady, so you get this kind of camera shake thing. which is where a tripod, of course, comes in. And that's a relatively inexpensive add to a phone or tablet. You can also now buy mounts, clamps, and those types of things to mount either a phone or a tablet on an actual photographic or video tripod. And then the big enhancement to either of those that would actually make it an acceptable experience for the remote audience would be that remote microphone. So a remote mic off of, say, either a phone or tablets. Now, again, this is a super simple approach, not highly recommended, because the Zoom experience, the remote experience, the virtual experience is not going to be excellent from this approach, but it gets you in the game. So here are some of the block diagrams that are in the guide. This is on page 4 of the technology guide. And what you see here is that basic structure built around a laptop as the basic platform for your streaming feed. So a remote microphone can be wired or wireless. It can be audio plug or USB. There are countless different versions. A webcam, something other than the device in or on the laptop, because primarily what you need from a webcam is you need the capability to zoom in on that speaker or to put it very close to the speaker if it doesn't have zoom capability. That's where your tripod comes in, and that's of course where a little bit of cabling between the webcam and the laptop will certainly buy you some flexibility. And then of course an internet connection, typically a Wi-Fi connection from the devices in the room to whatever's available in the facility. So what you have then is you have a good quality experience for the remote audience. They can hear, they can see. If there's some visual items or if something's being discussed as a handout, you can put that on the screen in terms of screen shares. And this same laptop, of course, can host the Zoom meeting. That same person, of course, or another person will be operating the webcam, keeping that webcam focused on what's happening in the room. Now, the downside of this approach, this single device approach, is that you don't see or hear the remote audience. You'll notice there's no projector, there's no screen in this block diagram. So this is kind of a one-way deal. This is kind of taking the local meeting out to the remote audience. It's not a fully hybrid experience. So let's talk about another option. Another option is we take just exactly those same things and add a few pieces to them. The first would be a projector, or actually a large monitor works incredibly well if the monitor is big enough and the crowd is small enough. That's of course fed by the old VGA multi-pin type connector, or more modern PCs and projectors of course have HDMI out, just the one connector that looks a little bit like a USB on steroids. Now, the other neat thing about HDMI is that it also carries audio, which means many projectors have onboard speakers. All monitors have onboard speakers. So rather than having to interface with the local sound system or bring along powered speakers so that the local audience can hear either a video or the Zoom audience, you can use that same HDMI connector and use your monitor or your projector as the speaker system. Of course, you take the presentations and videos, those would be sitting on the laptop where you're going to manage all this. And then the audio output, the equivalent of the headphone output from the laptop, goes into either a powered speaker or a PA system in the room. So now we've got a two-way experience. Now we are able to see the Zoom audience. And of course, this operator is going to be busy. There might be some pre-meeting slides, usually maybe at least a title slide or perhaps a little run of photo collage of club events and so forth. That person is also hosting the Zoom meeting, operating the webcam, managing any speaker slides, meaning a presenter. Now, my club has a large meeting in a large space, and we almost always have some visuals on the part of the presenter. So in our meeting format, a projector and screen is just the norm. You'd also want to screen share that then to the Zoom audience. What you don't want to try to do is you don't want to project something on the screen and then try to shoot that with a webcam. Horrible experience, but I've seen it tried. So what you'd like to do is you'd like to directly screen share, just as we are here. The content that's on the screen goes right out to the Zoom audience, and that means then that's what also appears on the local audience screen through the projector and on the large screen. Now, when you're not busy screen sharing, then you can do things like switch to the gallery view. Again, this gives the local audience the understanding that there's intelligent life out there. There are, a dozen or two people on the remote connection. Now, what does work? What does work is every now and then slightly pan your camera around the room so people get an idea that there is a local audience, but pan it by the screen where you have that gallery view. That way the local audience understands that they are being represented in the room. They feel like they're actually part of this thing. Well, the only problem with this is a gross overload of not only the operator, but also the device. Now, I'm screen sharing right now with you on Zoom, which means I've lost most of my meeting controls, or if I do anything with the meeting controls, it's going to show up on the screen. So a visual image of how this works, not everybody's into block diagrams, but here are some shots of this actual setup in a room, in a Rotary meeting. And you'll see in the foreground here on the left-hand side, a laptop. You'll see right beside it a projector. So the screen is off to your left on the photo, if it were in the photo. And the webcam is up on a tripod. You'll notice also the height of that tripod. The important thing about a camera is, as in broadcast TV, it's always on at or near the eye level of the presenter. So you want that camera to be about 5'6" off the floor, wherever it is in the room, so that it's actually shooting an eye level view and not getting a shot up the front of the podium. Of course, you see the podium in the background here. Now, on the right-hand side, you see what's happening on that screen, which is the gallery view of the Zoom audience. And of course, the Zoom audience can hear what's happening in the room because of the remote mic. The people in the room can hear any input from the Zoom audience, or perhaps a remote presenter. It's not unlikely that you'd have somebody, say, doing a committee report virtually as a part of this hybrid meeting. It buys you a lot of, or a virtual speaker for that matter, as a part of this hybrid meeting. Now, here's a better solution, and here's what I'd recommend, and here's what I do. And that is we separate this out so it's not so incredibly much work and just such an intense brain bruise on one operator. So what we have in this block diagram is we have that same laptop doing the live feed connected up the same way. Podium microphone, remote microphone, projector, slides, videos, etc. But then we add to that a second laptop, which is actually the host for the Zoom meeting. Think of this as the back-end producer. So this is the person that's managing all the levers, controlling the Zoom meeting, operating the webcam, spotlighting presenters, muting people, all that, handling remote presenters, queuing up remote presenters. So a chat, be ready to turn on your camera, be ready to unmute yourself. So you've got somebody that is solely focused on delivering that experience to the remote audience. So they're hosting, they're operating the webcam, they're spotlighting presenters, they're muting and unmuting the remote participants. And of course, if there's a speaker involved and there's Q&A coming through chat, they can monitor and manage that as well. So that person on the left-hand side of this diagram is really in charge of a quality virtual experience. Now you're starting to get the picture here that one of the challenges in hybrid meetings is you are producing two meetings in parallel. You're producing a virtual meeting, and that's what this person on the left-hand side is doing. You're also producing a local meeting where you've got slides, you've got videos, you've got a speaker at a podium. And so you've got plenty to do for the person on the right-hand side. And of course, all that's showing up on the projector or large monitor in the room. So in this example, and this is again on page 6 of the hybrid meetings guide, this person is responsible for the local experience, making that the best it can be. And of course, they're screen sharing to the projector with the slides and videos. And when nothing else is happening on the screen, switch over to the Zoom gallery so everybody understands that there's something going on out there in the world outside the meeting room. My club is typically having 50 or 60 people in the room and typically having 30 or 40 on Zoom at the same time. So we're almost doubling the audience that we would get if we were only running in-person meetings at our traditional meeting space in a downtown hotel. Now, here are some easy enhancements to all that. Number one is a camcorder, a real live movie camera. And the one that's in the shot here is a little Canon. It is about as big as your fist and weighs probably less than a pound. But it does have 10x optical zoom, meaning you can shoot right into that head and shoulder shot from 20 feet away that you want of that person at the podium. You also need, that's an HDMI output, which of course Zoom doesn't want. It wants a USB output like you get from a webcam. So an inexpensive little converter, about 25 bucks, available on Amazon. An inexpensive little converter is available to convert that HDMI output or standard video output into a USB output, so it looks to Zoom just like a webcam. It'll just appear as a camera input to Zoom. Another option, and this is really sweet, a fluid head tripod. A traditional tripod, of course, is made for still photography. So the idea is to mount the camera on it and lock it down and take a picture without moving. As a result, they don't move very smoothly. They kind of jerk as you start moving the camera. These are known as fluid head or dampened tripods. This one is really sweet. It's made by Newer, available from Amazon for 90 bucks. And you'll notice it collapses to what could be actually set on a tabletop if space is at a premium, or those legs extend. So this thing will actually extend to 6 feet off the ground, which is exactly where you want to be when you're shooting that speaker at a podium at roughly eye level. Then you can add additional cameras, considering that every person, every participant in the Zoom audience is also on camera. You can actually put additional cameras in the room. Some clubs like the idea of a camera facing the audience as well, so that the remote audience is seeing the crowd. You could have that in more than one location in the room, you know, one on the left, one on the right. You could also do it handheld. If you're doing it handheld, then what you want is what's known as a Steadicam Mount. And this is a mount that actually has some automation in it so that it holds the camera steady regardless of what happens with your hand. Now, most cameras today have some sort of image correction for slight movements, but if you're actually panning and tilting a camera that you're holding in your hands, either a movie camera or a smartphone, you probably want to go with one of these Steadicam mounts. This stuff just doesn't cost much. Steadicam mounts are readily available for less than 50 bucks. Another option is an all-in-one product. And here's my friend Cam to explain a little bit about how his club has been able to use that strategy.
Thank you, Terry. So when we held our first hybrid meeting at our club, our president, David Winkle, actually works for this company called D10. And he actually brought in this device, which is called as a D7. Think of it a 55-inch TV screen, which is mounted on a stand. And it gives you an all-in-one integrated option where there's a 4K camera that is facing you, along with an array of microphones. And it's got a touchscreen interface similar to your iPad, and it integrates very well with Zoom Room. The experience is amazing, David would be happy to kind of present it at your club if you would like to kind of have a demo of it or how this works. But the idea behind this is that all the audience which is in the room actually sees this TV screen, and then the virtual audience is able to see everybody in the room in person as the camera is moving. The other good feature of this is the camera has got artificial intelligence built into it. What that means is that when somebody is speaking during the meeting, the camera will focus on that speaker without you actually doing any touching the screen or moving anything. So there are multiple options available with this all-in-one option. One being this TV experience, one being like think of it as a circuit that can be mounted on top of an existing television. So yeah, there are many options. I would encourage you to take a look at the website of d10.com. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to address them in our upcoming breakout. Terry?
Thank you, Cam. So the name of the game here, folks, is, this stuff isn't terribly complicated, but it does require some intentionality. It requires roughly consumer level audio engineering to make sure that the mic works, to make sure that the speakers work, to make sure that everything's connected up to either a projector or an all-in-one sort of strategy like this. There's somebody in your club or available to your club who could help you out with this. I've also done this myself for another volunteer organization I'm part of, the Greenville Symphony. We're streaming our board meetings hybrid using exactly the same gear, exactly the same strategy. And I helped a local women's group do the same thing from a local private club. Again, person that happened to know me and realized that I was dabbling in this hybrid meetings world. So here's what we'd like you to take away from this. First of all, we'd encourage you to get in the game. If you're not doing hybrid meetings, in our opinion, you should be, because you are leaving those members who are not able to or can't or won't come to your meetings. They're just out of the loop, and they will be gone as a result if you don't do something to include them. You'll probably want to edit and post those recordings. We use some video editing strategies to clean up a recording after the fact. Makes it look almost as good as broadcast TV when you take some of the little glitches out here and there. And then you can post that for free on your club's YouTube or Vimeo channel, meaning that then, of course, you can have a link to that from your Facebook page, from your website. And of course, there's some strategies by which you put a little viewer on your website as well. There are a list of best practices on the back page of this manual. And some of those are, of course, minimizing screen share swaps. You'll notice we have not, we've swapped screen shares only once during this presentation. That was on purpose because screen shares do tend to be disruptive, and particularly inexperienced screen sharers have a difficult time with that. Getting all the visuals in hand in advance. This is a rule in my club. If it's going on the screen, we're going to have it in our hands at least 24 hours in advance, hopefully more, because you can't believe the number of times I've gotten a PowerPoint that was supposed to have a video in it, but they didn't happen to include the video, or somebody sent me the file that was actually the bookmark off their Windows desktop rather than the actual PowerPoint file. Wouldn't they have been surprised when it didn't happen when they showed up as a speaker? So, and finally, you got to plan ahead and you've got to start ahead. You want to start up your meeting about a half hour ahead on Zoom. We use a waiting room to do that, meaning that the folks involved in the actual meeting can get their wheels all lined up, check the audio, check the video, make sure everything's working. Then you turn off the waiting room and invite everybody in. So those are some of the things that we'd like you to consider as you get in the game with hybrid meetings. Back to you, Cam.
Thank you, Terry. We have an upcoming breakout. We would definitely like to take some questions. We would love to learn from each one of you. What are the different options you're considering? And as I said, this is a brand new world, and we are all going to learn and share from this. So look forward to see you all at breakouts. And thank you, Mike. Over to you.
Thank you, Cam, and thank you, Nico, and especially thank you, Terry. That was a great deal of wonderful information, and look forward to more of that.